Members and friends of the West Point community, in particular, Colonel Karen, Colonel Zupan, colleagues in the trenches who teach Philosophy 201, and the nearly 500 cadets now taking this course, good evening to all, and welcome. I'm Robert Tully, Professor of Philosophy at the Academy. Our guest speaker tonight, a man of extraordinary accomplishment, is Noam Chomsky, Institute Professor of Linguistics and Philosophy at the Massachusetts Technology. His reputation precedes him here by leaps and bounds. Just 6 months ago, the British Journal of Current Affairs Prospect conducted a poll among its more than 20,000 readers to identify today's leading global public intellectual. In the list of 100 such figures, Professor Chomsky came first, drawing more than twice the votes received by the runner-up, Umberto Eco. In the eyes of this journal, Professor Chomsky belongs to the, as they said, the age of the great oppositional thinker. Opposition has indeed been a consistent feature of Professor Chomsky's public life. Since the 1960s, he has been a determined and acerbic critic of American foreign policy. He has denounced politicians of both parties for hubris and blindness, and condemned American society for tolerating the grip of big business on politics and the pervasive influence of mass media. If he has been given more to condemnation than to praise, that may well be the world's fault, not his. Professor Chomsky has launched his attacks in newspapers, journals, and magazines, on radio and television, and in public forums, pronouncing on the major issues of the day, from Vietnam to Central America, the Middle East, the war on terror, and of course, Iraq. His articles and essays on political topics alone number more than 200. That, at least, is where I gave up counting. In addition, there are his more than 50 books on political matters, beginning in 1969 with American Power and the New Mandarins, and continuing to the present with the recently published Failed States. However, this amazing productivity constitutes only half the picture. Seemingly two people fill the shoes of one Noam Chomsky. His protests and denunciations will eventually recede from public view, but posterity will certainly always remember Noam Chomsky as the single thinker, the non-global, non-public intellectual who once revolutionized the science of linguistics. Chomsky's work in linguistics burst upon the scene in the late 1950s and was steadily consolidated in a vast number of articles and more than 30 books. He gave linguistics a new starting point. Chomsky set out to answer a fundamental question. What makes possible the endowment of human language itself? What lies beneath the enormous variety of spoken languages? He theorized that our familiar languages derive from an underlying universal grammar, a set of operational rules in which native children already possess sufficient skill to enable them unthinkingly to become speakers of their parents' language in just a few years. Whether this underlying grammar is a function of the mind or of the brain was of secondary concern to Chomsky. As a linguist, he aimed to codify and give formal shape to the rules by which the language learner naturally operates. This is science in an abstract but profound sense. The new direction that Chomsky gave to linguistics made his project comparable to the work done by Whitehead and Russell a half-century earlier, who aspired to base both formal logic and number theory on a set of first principles. His achievement on behalf of linguistics was also in the spirit of two great European rationalists, the philosophers Descartes and Kant, who had sought in their own ways and for different purposes to find anchorage for our experience of the world in the workings of an objective human reason. Two selves, then, the public controversialist and the academic scientist. Two voices, but one Noam Chomsky. Do such divergent interests have a foundation? Is there an underlying unity to the voices? I think the answer can be found in the same European tradition, from which also comes the view that the moral will is an essential component of human reason. According to the rationalist, we recognize the rightness or wrongness of human actions just as we intuit the necessary truth of some propositions. Our ethical judgments express the workings of the moral law, and a sharpened insight compels us to take an ethical stand if we have the courage. The rationalist with courage rejects self-deception and the dominance of feeling The chief concern is with what it is right to do, not with whether consequences make the action right. Above all, the rationalist upholds a universal perspective that treats people as ends rather than as means. Actions contrary to this perspective deserve to be exposed and criticized, all the more so if they are the actions of governments that abuse their nearly absolute power for the sake of self-interest. Noam Chomsky is a passionate rationalist, yet his endeavor has not been to advance a novel theory of ethics. The moral certainties that compel him to speak are not theoretical. They are the stuff of everyday moral intuitions, simple and easily recognized, but in need of a voice. How these certainties are applied is the stuff of controversy, but the dust of political and social debate all too easily obscures the strong moral convictions that underlie them. I do not apologize for these lengthy remarks about Professor Chomsky. It cannot be said that a person of such remarkable complexity needs no introduction, to use a worn phrase. He has come to speak to us tonight about some aspects of just war theory, after which he will engage the students, the cadets of Philosophy 201, in discussion, and priority in the question and answer period will be given to the cadets. Let this discussion be what all philosophical debate aims to be: objective, open, respectful, fair, well argued. In one word, rational. Please join me now in welcoming our guest, Professor Noam Chomsky.
Thanks. I think a useful place to start might be with a recent academic study by an Oxford professor of traditions of war, which contrasts two leading paradigms in the study of just war, what the author calls the Grotian and Republican interpretations.